I've seen a lot of people using it for the first time going, oh, I put this in, it came back with this rubbish, like, oh, AI doesn't work. What are some basic rules here if we're doing prompting ourselves to get a better quality output?
What we did was we kind of zoomed out and said, okay, what are the principles? Like, forget about the tricks and hacks and tips that you see on social media. Let's zoom out. Like, what are the main principles of, like, here are the categories that worked 4 years ago, 3 years ago. They're still working today, and we think that they will continue to work in the future. And it actually ends up being a pretty small list. It's five things. And you can run down them like a checklist, right? We based the whole book on this. The first one is give direction. That's the briefing part, like that's the role-playing part. Say, like, as Steve Jobs, come up with a product name, right? You're going to get very different names if you say, as Elon Musk, come up with a product name. And then the second one is specify the format. It makes a big difference as to what format you want this response in. Like for image generation, do you want this as like in the format of like a painting, or do you want it as like a product photo, or do you want this to look like a video game? Like, this is what, if you're building AI applications, it becomes really important that the text that comes back is in a format that the developer can pass and use, like JSON. And then the third thing we usually move on to is providing examples. And this is the biggest, most impactful thing you can do, but it takes a bit of time because you have to find good examples of the task being done. So if you've given it some direction, you specified what format you want it in, and it's still doing a bad job, that's the biggest thing you can do, is like go and write some examples of this task. Like, do the task manually a few times, or find examples on the internet.
Or upload the image of something.
Or upload an image of something that you want to kind of replicate, and then it's going to do a much better job. It makes such a big difference that in AI research, they differentiate it. They say, how well does this model do zero shot, which is no examples given, versus few shot, which is a handful of examples given of the task. Those are the three things you kind of do to improve the prompt. Then you're kind of thinking about how do we improve the system. So then the fourth is evaluate quality. So don't just run it once or twice, run it 10 times. You can just hit regenerate in ChatGPT. You don't necessarily have to be a developer to run it a few times. Okay. So run it 10 times and see how often does it get it right or wrong. Because it is probabilistic. You don't get the same result every time. And sometimes it might fail, and you don't want to kind of rely on that. Then then the fifth principle is divide labor. You don't want to try and do everything in one prompt. Quite often you want to split it up into multiple tasks. So in generating blog content, for example, don't ask it to create a whole blog post with one prompt. You can ask it to write some titles, and then you can ask it to write an intro. And then after the intro, you can say, okay, write an outline for what the body copy should have. And then you say, okay, write section 1 of the outline, write section 2 of the outline, write section 3 of the outline. And then you might have like, okay, write an outro, generate an image for that is relevant to this blog post. And then you might even say, okay, now rewrite it in my style. Here's my style. So you can have multiple steps, as part of that one thing. And typically you get better results if you split things up.